Brodes Media.
Darius Slay has been released. A very emotional time. I keep going back to Monday Night Football 2022. Justin Jefferson, my guy, put Justin Jefferson in jail. One catch for 7 yards when Slay was in coverage. He had 2 interceptions and a few pass breakups as well. Stud. And he still has some left in the tank. So if Howie and Darius Slay can work together here to get him back at a more reasonable number, that would be my first option. And we'll take a look at all the potential options that Howie has in front of him and weigh out what will be best, what would be my least favorite. And then we have some other things as well, like Deebo Samuel going to the Commanders and potentially also going after Myles Garrett if Cleveland does end up trading him. And should we be concerned with a certain division rival looking to improve after an NFC championship ass whooping? Oh, don't forget about that. That was a legitimate ass whooping. And that's not going to change. All right, so let's walk through the options a little bit, with option 1 being flat out Darius Slay returns. And here's why I think I would lean in that direction. I think he could still play. It kind of reminds me of Fletcher Cox, because when Fletcher Cox was definitely dwindling down, we always held him to this standard of Fletcher Cox when he was 25 years old, in the best shape of his life, arguably the best defensive tackle in the league, and nobody can ever stop him. Now, maybe he wasn't giving you that on a night-to-night basis, but let's not act like Fletch wasn't still kicking ass during his last few seasons and his last run. That's Darius Slay now. Sometimes, and he is a weird figure because he's very vocal. He's very willing to speak his thoughts. He's willing to go on podcasts of Dallas Cowboys and Detroit Lions, and that rubs people the wrong way. And if he gets beat once but has 7 phenomenal plays, people seem to stick on the one bad play more than anybody else when it comes to secondary pieces. So I understand in a way he's been a controversial figure for the fan base. I got one buddy of mine, shout out Roman, I know you listen to the show, but man, every single day he texts the group chat, Darius Slay stinks. I'm like, dude, it's the offseason. You know, it's the offseason. It's Tuesday at 3 o'clock. You're telling me you're thinking about Darius Slay stinking right now? That's a joke. That's the type of nonsense that Slay has to deal with, and it's unfair. Slay was ridiculous, and he still has enough in his game where he can be an outside corner 2 opposite of Quinyon Mitchell for a chance to make a back-to-back Super Bowl run. And knowing that, let's make it happen. So that would be the first decision I would make if I was Howie Roseman. If the Detroit Lions are willing to give him more, so be it. But Zach Berman put out this tweet earlier today that said the Eagles were willing to move on from Darius Slay. And if you remember, they did go through the whole process back in 2023 when Slay was ready to actually sign with the Ravens. Quote, Baltimore offered way more money, Slay said. And I'm like, I just came off the Super Bowl run. Go chase the bag. Then Big Dom called him and said, we need you. Slay says, Dom, he's one of the dudes. He calls me and he's like, I need you because he'd do it for my family. He made it right. Slay stayed for 2 more seasons and won the Super Bowl. So essentially, Big Dom saves the day to make sure that Slay doesn't go to Baltimore and head to that AFC squad. And look, I don't know if winning the Super Bowl actually changes things, because now that you got the ring coming your way, now that you went through the parade, now that you were able to lift the Lombardi and experience that, if you're going to go on a final tour and think you got one more shot to lace up the cleats, play a 17-game schedule, and see what ends up happening, especially if he can go back to Detroit, that's where his career started. You know, he leaves for a little bit, he could go back. That team's still good and competing in the NFC. So because he already won, maybe it's an easier decision to walk away. Whereas back in 2022, you lost, and there was so much pain, and there was so much suffering, and there was so much hunger, and you want to get back so badly, and you feel the Eagles are set up so nicely. It's not it's not apples to apples comparison. There is a night and day feel to sort of this offseason with Slay. And I do think that matters big time. I just can't stop losing sight of this one particular detail of cornerback 2. And this is more from a Howie Roseman view. Quinyon Mitchell is one of the best corners in the league. If you are a quarterback facing this Eagles defense, guess who you're staying away from? I'll tell you for free. You're not looking at Quinyon Mitchell. You're trying everything in your power to stay away because you don't got time. Because there's not enough separation. Because Quinyon is suffocating your wide receiver and putting his hand, strangling his neck and putting you into the ground with just beautiful coverage. How many times has Quinyon Mitchell gotten beat? It just doesn't happen. So, you look on the other side of the field. And I'm not sure if you were to bring back Isaiah Rodgers, which I like him as a, I don't want to call it a rotational piece, but I don't mind Isaiah Rodgers in a pinch. I don't mind Isaiah Rodgers if he needs to start for a few games of the regular season, if he needs to go in mid-game in a second half when somebody goes down and they're getting all sorts of work from the medical staff and the trainers on the sidelines. He has a role, and I think he could play in this league. Big difference between hopping in when the squad needs you and then you being the focus of what the other team is going to target every single down in the passing game. Is Isaiah Rodgers ready for that? Does he play a physical enough brand of football and also the mental side to bring that toughness and bring that juice on a snap-by-snap basis? Because that's what you are going to be. You're going to be the guy that is constantly, without 1 second of breathing room, getting targeted. Is Ringo ready for that? Maybe. What I'm not going to tell you is no. Because I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe they are. And maybe they want to get youth because they don't like the idea of Slay going into a game, leaving a game, taking a few snaps off, leaving the game. We've seen that, right? That is definitely part of the Slay experience now, which is the Jason Peters style of this guy's hanging on by a thread, but not to that level because I don't think Slay's hanging on by a thread, but I do know he bounces in and out of the game. But I still think he does so much well that it is very worth trying to bring him back and acquire him on a cap hit that makes the most sense. So let's make sure we keep it all within the right mindset here, okay? And, so I don't know if the younger guys are ready to line up against Quinyon and get abused. Here's one answer, though, and it, of course, depends on how many corners are on the field and what the call is from Vic Fangio. Is Cooper DeJean going to play outside? Can he play outside? Was that part of their vision when they drafted him? Is we think he can be opposite of Quinyon Mitchell for a good portion and insert in sets to get him on the field even more, he could end up playing on the outside. I can't rule it out. I think that's my favorite outside of just having Darius Slay return would be, let's make this thing happen with Coop. They like Ringo a lot. They may like Ringo more than Rodgers. And I've seen Ringo make some serious plays now. I just also get lost with this sometimes. I'm trying to win a Super Bowl. Is Ringo the outside corner 2 on a Super Bowl contending team? Maybe the answer is yes. Maybe your front, if you go get Myles Garrett, maybe you don't have time to just throw the ball a billion times in the game and then, you start to abuse certain corners. We saw it throughout the Jonathan Gannon year where you're getting 70 sacks, so your front is just getting home and creating all sorts of chaos in the trenches. And if that's the case, where your front is organically creating more pressure than they did throughout the season, this most past season, they didn't have bad pass rush, but I'm saying, what if they had an otherworldly pass rush? What if they had arguably one of the best pass rushes in history? What if they went back to being a wow juggernaut fucking elite in the trenches? And then, yeah, you know what? At that particular time, I think you can survive differently with a Ringo, with an Isaiah Rodgers. Yes. So go get Myles Garrett, go bring back Zach Bond, and then I could see Darius Slay go to a different town and still feel very good and have a lot of pride in what Vic Fangio can accomplish with that personnel. So that would be the world where I would be more accepting of Slay no longer being here. Is you, I don't want to say you try and hide deficiencies, because I think they're good. The standard is just set so high because Darius Slay is one of the best corners. To last that long and to still be kicking and to still have some left in his tank, that's a big deal. That's a big deal. Darius Slay's career is no joke. So I am also comparing it to something that is very unique and rare. And maybe that's unfair to an Isaiah Rodgers. Maybe that's unfair to a Ringo. Maybe this is what happens when you win a Super Bowl and my mindset is so skewed because I have one goal in mind and I feel because it happened one way, it needs to happen that way. And that's where my brain automatically goes to. But there's many different ways to build this. And if you didn't play on the shittiest field to ever be made in Arizona, then maybe your pass rush could have actually delivered in the Super Bowl. You go from having 70 sacks to I can't get any traction and can't get any sort of pressure on the quarterback. That played a role. So if you still build that way again and you start to believe in more with the trenches and you go out and make a splash with Cleveland, maybe that's what you do.